What is wrong with my teenager? My name is Annette, and Effortless Parenting will show you how you deserve a calmer home and have the courage to accept that you don't have to be a perfect parent. So since my last video, my firstborn has become a teenager, and I for years didn't have the courage to promote my work to parents of teenagers. While I had clients who I worked with and they successfully implemented those tools and skills, I was just really afraid of pushback and being told, you just don't know what it's like. And those parents would have been right, because I wasn't a parent yet of a teenager, and right now I'm only at the starting stages of experiencing parenting, or experiencing that teenage brain from a parent's point of view. And so yeah, my thoughts, I had some thoughts over the last few days, and I want to share some of them. So, you know, in the early years, we don't really remember that much of when we were a young child. And if you take a bit of a dive into neurobiology, you'll find out that the brain waves of younger children are almost like hypnosis, and that allows that young brain to absorb so much and learn so much in such a short space of time. And a lot of parents say that children are like sponges, and they seem to be in the moment so easily, or to stay in the present moment. And then when we become a teenager, all that changes. And a lot of parents I speak with, they also remember a lot more of what that was like, and how maybe adults sometimes were a bit harsh with teenagers. And I definitely remember some of those moments. So I would have been, when I had those moody days, I would have heard from adults things like, she's in puberty, just ignore her. And you probably heard something similar. So, you know, what did you hear? And feel free to leave a comment below, or just even remember what that was like. And what I would like to do in the coming years is exactly how I've been practicing it with younger children, and I've been sharing with parents, is to ask ourselves, how would we like to have been parented? And with knowing what we know now, you know, coming from like the experience of an adult, like would you have like more limits or less as a teenager, you know? I once had a parent sitting in front of me, and that parent said if they ever catch their teenager smoking cigarettes, what they'll do is they'll make them smoke the whole package in front of them, so that they get really ill and feel sick, and they will never smoke again. And you often hear me speak about these different ranges of the spectrum. So this would probably be a more authoritarian approach. And you know, if you were a teenager in the 90s like me, and if you imagine that we had phones back then, you know, how would you have parented yourself back then? How would you have allowed yourself to not have any limits at all? And you know, I think they're always really good questions to ask ourselves. And when I ask myself, how will I do that? What's the right thing? And I've read so much about teenagers now at this stage that what I believe the only way is, because, you know, the way younger children, they need us a lot more. And then teenagers, they are a lot more powerful. So I believe that we can only make the rules with our teenagers, and I've changed lately to calling them agreements rather than rules, you know. And teenagers are really ahead, aren't they, in the game of knowing about technology. And I remember when I was that age, and video players, or what are they called, VCRs, were new, and I remember thinking, how do some of these adults not get how this works, So I'm expecting all these teenagers to know everything about screens and games, and that's going to be my approach. And yeah, in the last few days, I've been doing a bit of work on this because my daughter is due to get her first phone in a few months' time, and I always have called all these screens, like that. I felt I'm up against that screen monster, and the work I did after I've read about what do experts say, what is the right approach, and we all want to know what's the right thing to do. So I wanted to find some of my own truth and how will I deal with this in the best way I can. And this is my truth, could be totally different for you. And what I'm going to plan on doing is I'm going to have my child teach me how all this works to help me come out of this overwhelm, and that I don't fall into this needing to supervise and monitor everything that is done on that device. And this may sound completely ridiculous. However, in the last few years, while my children or even me as a parent had the training wheels on when it came to exposing my children to screens in a limited amount, what I have found that every time I come at it from a very controlling point, and I sometimes wish that we could go back to the days before smartphones, I was always met with a lot of resistance, and I kind of created my own power struggles as well. And so that brings me back to that question. What would you have, what were your memories as a teenager? What was it that didn't work from being a teenager's point of view? And again, feel free to leave a comment so we can help each other as parents to know what didn't work and what was received in a more discouraging way. And when we obviously all know what doesn't work, and that is really the question, what does work? And what I believe works for me is my biggest and deepest longing as a teenager would have been to be heard. And being heard, you might wonder, how can I help my child be heard? And what I figured out was that for my child to be heard, I have to talk less. And when I started practicing this, I also then practiced that in my adult relationships, because that works equally with children and adults. And I'm filming this the week before Christmas, and there will be loads of family gatherings all around. And this goes for gatherings or, get-togethers at any time. What I have found or discovered, which was something really amazing in this approach of talking less, was that when I listen more to the other, I don't only listen more to them, but I also can hear more what I'm feeling and thinking. And sometimes, especially when we're around a lot of people, we might get stuck in conversations, and when we speak less, we can ask ourselves, does this resonate what they're saying, or does it not? And then that always helped me, to maybe move on to the next, or help me set healthy boundaries for myself. So with that, thank you very much for listening, and enjoy creating calmer homes.